good evening. Welcome. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Bangor City Council. Today is February 12th, 2024. It's 7:30 p.m. and today is the 190th birthday of the city of Bangor. As I said in our council workshop, we don't look a day over 185. We begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I spot our school committee chair in the audience tonight, and I'd like to ask Marwa to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This is the portion of the meeting set aside for public comment. Public comment, whether in person or on Zoom, requires you to state your name and whether you are a resident of Bangor. Inappropriate or offensive remarks may be interrupted and removed. The council chair has discretion over the time allotted for each comment. Tonight, each speaker will have 3 minutes for comment. If you'd like to offer comment on any item that does not appear on the regular agenda, you can approach the podium. On Zoom, the public may be recognized to speak by the hand raise function or on the phone by pressing *9.
Give me. Hello, everyone. My name is Davidson. I live here in Bangor, actually just up the street. And I'm here this evening to call upon the City of Bangor and the City Council to propose and adopt a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Israel's ongoing campaign against the Gaza Strip. We are all aware of the horrors that have been taking place in Gaza since October, and I'm proud to say that I've been one of many here in Bangor who have been taken to the streets to protest against Israel's brutal campaign, to call for an immediate ceasefire, and to demand freedom and justice for the Palestinian people, and also to condemn our own government's complicity in Israel's crimes against humanity. On January 26th, the International Court of Justice issued a provisional ruling that Israel must immediately take steps to prevent acts of genocide. Amnesty International has stated that the only way to make this possible is through an immediate ceasefire. In spite of this, Israel has only intensified its attacks, and yesterday began its assault on Rafah, where 1.4 million Palestinians have sought refuge since October. As of this afternoon, the total death toll in Gaza stands at 28,000 deaths, more than 28,000 deaths, and the vast majority of these are children, women, and the elderly. The City of Bangor cannot continue to remain silent in the face of these atrocities. Already, more than 70 cities and municipalities across the United States, including Portland here in Maine, as well as major cities like Seattle, Detroit, and Chicago, have adopted ceasefire resolutions. It's time for Bangor to stand for peace and justice and join their ranks by passing a ceasefire resolution as well. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Thank you.
Bangor City Council members, my name is Santiago, and I live in Hamden. While I may not sleep every night in Bangor, I do participate here. And while I may not be a Bangorian, I am also a Mainer and an American. Why should Bangor City Council pass a ceasefire resolution? Because the federal government of the United States of America, led by the Zionist Joe Biden, is aiding and abetting a genocide conducted by the apartheid state of Israel against the people of Palestine. And we, as Americans, are complicit. Americans fund and allow this behavior to occur. We are bystanders to the most extreme form of bullying, abuse, and oppression. Mass murder, forced displacement, destruction of civic infrastructure, and willful starvation on the grounds of ethnic and national identity. By not holding the bully, the killer, accountable, we are, in our silence and inaction, assenting to this behavior. Bystanders actively create an environment where the bully can view their actions as permissible. What is worse than this is active collusion in the bullying, in the killing. What's worse than complacency is actively supporting, actively being an accessory to the act, and even after the fact, justifying the oppression as necessary. We have seen this in 2 of our 12 aircraft carrier strike groups being used to cover Israel's crimes. We have seen this in arms shipments to the oppressor. We have seen this in the justification of Zionism as an alternative to fascism. Let me be clear, fascism and Zionism both kill, displace, and seize without warrant. This is the moral challenge of our time. The path is especially not, but realistically, never clear. That is to say, such challenges are not without struggle, but struggle and rise through it we must if we seek peace and harmony among humankind. By standing up to the narrative that the powers that maybe have thrust upon us, we seek this end. There is a way out of this situation, but it is not to shy away or disengage. It is to fully and wholeheartedly pass through it. I believe that justice anywhere is a threat to injustice everywhere. And as we stand for justice in this small corner of the world, our actions and principles resonate outwards across the web of mutuality, across our networks. As we exercise our power, so we exercise influence. I do not want my government at any level to make me complicit in genocide. I do want my government at all levels to be against tyranny and corruption. And if it won't hold itself accountable, I will. Thank you very much. Ceasefire now.
Hello, my name is Tamara Benson. I live in Orono and I work in Bangor. I'm here to express my historically rooted and compassion-driven support for an immediate and permanent ceasefire resolution in the city of Bangor. How many of you have heard of the phrase manifest destiny? All right. As you know, this phrase was used to justify European colonizers committing a brutal genocide of the indigenous people of what we now call North America. It was a myth that the land was mainly uninhabited and that those who lived there were uncivilized, and that the Europeans had not only a right but an obligation to settle and civilize the land. How many of you have heard the phrase, turn the desert blue? That is the phrase that Israel has been using to justify the ethnic cleansing and genocide of indigenous Palestinian people since the 1940s, the 40s. This violence did not start on October 7th. For nearly 80 years, Israel has been using the same rhetoric that the land is mostly uninhabited, that those who live there are uncivilized terrorists, and that Israel has a right to uproot, displace, torture, and murder Palestinians to create a theocratic ethno-state founded on white supremacist and colonial ideologies. For 80 years, Israel has been committing an ethnic cleansing of indigenous Palestinians in the name of protection and defense. I understand why you might not want to rock the boat. There is so much going on in the world and Bangor, and many things feel uncertain and unstable. I can understand why it might feel like the passing of a ceasefire resolution would only add to that chaos, and how staying silent on this issue might feel like one of those things that you can hold on to for a sense of stability. It's certainly easier to tell yourselves that this isn't your fight and that Bangor has no place in this struggle, but I assure you that this is your fight, and Bangor does have a place in this struggle. Studies show that 66% of U.S. voters support a permanent ceasefire and de-escalation of violence in Palestine. Mainers have shown their support for a ceasefire through demonstrations all over the state and marching in Washington, D.C. in November. And yet, our elected officials on both the national and state levels are choosing to ignore us and continue to support and fund genocide. They will continue to ignore us unless more municipalities like the city of Bangor call for a permanent ceasefire. Bangor cannot claim to stand in solidarity with indigenous people in Maine while remaining silent as our tax dollars fund a genocide of indigenous people in Palestine. Bangor must call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Saladin Wise. I go to Orono High School and I live in Orono. I am Palestinian by blood, and I come here today out of sheer disappointment with the council before me. How is it that we are still begging for a ceasefire after 4 months of the ongoing genocide? Just yesterday, during our beloved Super Bowl, Israeli forces killed over 100 Palestinians in Rafah. Might I add, Rafah is supposed to be a safe zone. To think this issue is exaggerated and of no demand is delusional. The least this council can do is call for a ceasefire. You may think a place like Bangor has no effect on what's happening in Palestine, but that is far from the truth. I urge you to join places like San Francisco, California, Detroit, Michigan, and Chicago, Illinois, and many other places in calling for a desperately needed ceasefire. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. Thank you.
Is there other public comment in the room?
Hi, everybody. My name is Claire Mandell. I live and work as a psychologist in Bangor. I wrote you earlier tonight, but I thought I would put this on the public record. I urge you to pass a resolution supporting an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the release of all hostages, and a moratorium on aid to Israel. Such a resolution would send a strong signal to our congressional delegation that Bangor citizens do not want to be enablers of genocide. Jared Golden receives more in campaign contributions from the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee than from any other donor. He, as well as Senators King and Collins, need to hear from his own constituents that we are tired of the endless deaths of innocent people and want him to stop listening to the Israeli lobby and ignoring his constituents. A doctor acquaintance of our family who lives in Virginia recently lost 100 members of his family to Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. Those killed were doctors, mental health professionals, and other professionals, as well as children. Currently, about 1 million civilians are trapped in Rafah in southern Gaza, where the Israelis have announced they will soon start a ground incursion. Just today, dozens of civilians, including children, were killed in Israeli airstrikes. Netanyahu had told these innocent people to move to Rafah to be safe, and now he is targeting them. Rafah is currently the most densely populated place in the entire world, and it's being bombed. Families are sleeping on the street and eating grass to avoid starvation. They have nowhere else to go. The Hamas attack on Israeli civilians was horrendous, but we must stop trying to end violence by using violence. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence, you may murder the liar, but cannot murder the lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence, you may murder the hater, but you do not murder hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate." Please listen to his words and pass a resolution. Thank you.
My name is Justin Cardi. I'm a resident of Bangor, Maine, on Essex Street. I stand here before you today, not calling the end of any wars, although I do not support any war. The only winner in war are the bankers. I stand here with gratitude for Mr. Leonard, who picked up a drop ball a couple weeks ago and found funding for projects here in the city of Bangor that were much needed. 8 years ago, I put down the shovel and quit digging myself a hole and started attending Alcoholics Anonymous. And now I'm a productive member of society here in Bangor, and even the chief of police here has invited me into his home to do work in the past few years. Without those programs, there is nothing I think that would have saved my life and allowed me to stand here before you today, a humbled man, thankful for the opportunity to be part of this Bangor community. And if there is anything I can do to help this community, I wish to do that. Not looking for your work, I'm looking to be part of this community and to help. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marwa Hassanin, and I do reside in Bangor as well. Dear Chair Pelletier and esteemed councilors, on the afternoon of Sunday, January 28th, many members of the community at large packed into the ICM in Orono for a well-attended call to action ceasefire event. People of all faiths and of no faith converged to make calls and wrote over 250 letters to our congressional delegation to call for an immediate ceasefire, a return of hostages, and for humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. Amongst these community members were Jewish friends from all around the state and colleagues from Beth El Synagogue who also supported this call for a ceasefire. This is not about religion, though. It is about humanity, and we all stand together hand in hand. What is happening in Gaza is a humanitarian crisis with serious violations of international humanitarian laws for all Palestinians. The scale of the crisis is catastrophic and unparalleled, with over 30,000 people killed, over 11,000 of them being children. Neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble, along with hospitals, churches, mosques, and schools. Currently, nowhere is safe. Even the Rafah border in southern Gaza that was deemed safe and where 1 million of Gazans have been displaced is not safe. The Israeli army has mounted a ground invasion, killing innocent civilians and even more children. While we condemn repeatedly what happened on October 7th and ask for a release of hostages, we will continue to speak up and demand a ceasefire to bring this barbaric slaughter by the Israeli government to an end. We have family friends right in this room who have lost family members in these carpet bombings. I urge you to send a strong message to our congressional delegation that your constituents are saying enough is enough. Please do the right thing and pass a ceasefire resolution similar to what was passed in Portland. That is what bold leadership is all about. Thank you.
I watched in anguish first the
ma'am?
senseless.
Could you
I'm
introduce
sorry,
yourself?
my name is Pamela Furry.
Do you live in Bangor?
I live in Old Town, I work in Bangor.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I watched in anguish first the senseless and indefensible slaughter of Israelis, many of whom were Palestinian allies, by Hamas, followed by the disproportionate and retaliatory slaughter of trapped Palestinians, half of whom were children too young to form a political allegiance by Israel. It's time to acknowledge, as one individual trapped in this senseless cycle of violence has reminded us, that blood does not wash blood. It's time for more rational and enlightened heads to prevail. Heads animated by a vision of peaceful coexistence and motivated to create a world where each human being has the opportunity to reach their full potential, regardless of what country they are from, what God they worship, what color their skin is, or who they love. I urge you to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Callas. I live and work here in Bangor, and I recently graduated from the University of Maine. I just wanted to share a few words in support of a ceasefire resolution that has also been shared by many of the people in this room already. I was going to start by talking about the current situation in Rafah and the terrible bombardment that happened yesterday during the Super Bowl, but in the interest of time, and since many people have already touched on that, I'm going to skip that part. I would just like everybody to keep in mind that before October 7th, the city of Rafah had a population of 275,000 people. Today it stands at 1.4 million, which is almost exactly the population of Maine. You know, living in this community, I often hear people wonder why we should care about what's happening in a country so far across the globe. And if the slaughter of thousands of innocent people isn't reason enough, just remember that this genocide is funded with American dollars and is fought with American weapons. And as taxpayers, as participants in the American economy, as consumers of American media, our money, our consent, and our silence is what allows Israel to continue its illegal occupation of Palestine without any repercussion. Now, I'm not personally a big fan of the US government, but I do believe it can be leveraged for good causes. And I think with enough pressure we can convince our representatives and the Biden administration to call for a ceasefire and for a release of all hostages. This begins with local organizing, with boycotts, with demonstrations, and resolutions like the one we've been talking about here today. So I urge the people of this council to please join with the majority of Americans and take a step towards lasting peace. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Larry Danzinger. My name is Larry Danzinger, 21 Mount Desert Drive in Bangor. And I brought copies of this resolution, and you get a special color. Which I guess would be called salmon, but, well, we still have a few salmon around here, fortunately. So I am Jewish, and my father came here to this country as a teenager to get away from pogroms in Eastern Europe. And then I was born, and then I visited a nephew of mine in Israel who lives there today. And my nephew has a daughter, two daughters, one of which is in the Israeli Defense Force right now. And I'm hoping that person is very safe, but I'm not sure. And I consider myself pro-Jewish and pro-Palestinian and Muslim. And what I'm opposed to is the Israeli government and the Hamas because of the things they've done to other people that I don't believe can help anybody in this situation. And I'm especially concerned about the safety and security of two plus million Palestinians and my nephew and his children in Israel, because I think what's happening is going to make them less safe and secure. And I'm also concerned about anti-Jewish and anti-Muslim or anti-Palestinian acts that I think are happening, unfortunately, more often as a result of this situation. So I think there are several or many reasons for us and for the council to encourage a ceasefire right now. There's a saying that one death is a tragedy, 1,000 deaths are a statistic. And I hope you don't think of the 27, 28, 30,000, whatever that number is, of Palestinians who've died as a statistic. They are each individuals with individual lives and stories that we should and need to know. And I hope that my nephew and his family will also not be those statistics. So I just want to encourage you all to support a resolution similar to something in Portland, whatever you think will be useful and helpful in promoting an end to this tragic situation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Norton, 83 Elm Street, Unit C, Bangalore. I'm pro-Christian, pro-Jewish, pro-Islam, pro-Muslim, pro-Buddhist, and pro-atheist. And I think with regard to the petition tonight, unexpected to be, I think it's great, but this hydrogen that we all are living on, just like all the other elements, is 250 billion years old in all of our languages. So everyone looks so good tonight. Everybody's so dressed up and looks so well in uniform, some not. And I listen and see this same John Nash back and forth between Palestine and Israel on my radio if I go home and listen to the radio or the TV, or if I go turn on the TV every day and do other things. So it looks to me, and I'm glad I said this, one of the people who walked in tonight, she looks great. I thought that she was going to a show, like at the theater. And I feel like we should all be going there, and whoever's listening to the theater more often. I wrote a 75-page screenplay this weekend. It's sci-fi, it's fun. It's called Dead AI. It got picked up today. The budget matches exactly the City of Bangor, Maine Recreation Facilities feasibility study numbers. And it can generate a heck of a lot more revenues responsibly with a team like a filmmaking team who puts it together and gets it in the pipeline, because there are sequels to that as well in store, because it's one of those classic formula things. So I'm just gonna wait for the bell to ring and say, this guy looks like Al Pacino, the young man who spoke tonight. He looks exactly like Al Pacino. I could use him in the movies. And do you know the resonance of water
7.83 hertz?
in the magnetism system?
I do not.
That's the merry-go-round system.
Discuss it, yeah.
The resonance is 513 billion units of resonance in the magnetism system. You could also answer it in form of the daily tides. It's the fourth tide of every tide each day. It just doesn't move as fast as our UTC clocks, not at the same pace. The point I'm trying to make here is education. We have to focus more on education. I have a whole class that's not even matriculated yet in the schools. And all of these readers are so good theatrically and dramatically in diction with voice, but we got to get back to the schools. Oh, you don't, thank you.
High five, great job.
More reassuring.
My name is Jackson Peck. I am a former Bangor resident, current Brewer resident, and the vast majority of my work takes place in Bangor. First, I want to say I'm looking forward to the movie, so let me know when it comes out. And second, I wanted to say I agree. I, too, am very sick and tired of the back and forth between pro-Palestine, pro-Israel, the flag waving, the yelling and shouting. I think what we have here tonight is the perfect opportunity to set aside those two camps and to really recognize our shared humanity. This is not about picking a side. This is not about making empty political statements. This is about really just saying that we stand up for life, that we stand up for making sure that nobody has to die in the middle of the night in a bombing raid, to make sure that nobody running under the age of 10 with a white flag down the road gets sniped. I agree. I'm really sick and tired of the back and forth. Don't pick a side, stand together, pick the same side. We just gotta stop it. Thanks.
Hello. Good evening, Chairperson, Pelletier, honorable members of the City Council. My name is Brianna Norris, and I am a resident of Bangor. I stand in front of you as one of 3 Muslim elected officials in the House of Representatives, and I was born and raised here in this community, and I'm asking for you to support this resolution. I ask that you listen with an open heart so that I am not misheard and these words are not misconstrued. Of course, I'm open to conversations afterwards. You all know me, so that we can have a deeper conversation about this. Trust what I stand for is peace and safety for all, regardless of faith or background. And it takes courage to stand here like everyone has that came before me. I want to start by saying that we must combat anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, the perpetrators of which are no friends to this movement. The people that want to persecute Jewish people and perpetrate anti-Semitism are the same people that want Palestinians to die. So we have to do this together and push forward as one, united, as we have done over the past few months and as you have seen with the diverse group that has stood in front of you today. We join hands across generations, race, religion, gender, and stand for a better future. I am standing in solidarity with Jewish people, Muslim people, and people of all faiths and backgrounds. I stand here along with millions of Americans and dozens in this room asking for you to call our federal delegation to support a ceasefire. Safety is the hope through this solidarity. We are asking for peace for all, and I am asking you to join me and stand for peace, compassion, justice, and security for all. Palestinian people, like all people, deserve to live in peace and with dignity, the same freedom that we all deserve. I am coming to you as your constituent to tell you that I have been living in intense and unrelenting grief for the past over 100 days. I have woken up in intense grief and sorrow as I've witnessed children pulled out from under rubble of their homes that have been destroyed. And I feel all the pain and sorrow in my body as I am standing in front of you today, and I know you all do too. Legal scholars and human rights experts and international organizations worldwide have recognized this for what it is, a genocide. As of February 1st, 1,200 Israelis have been killed. Over 13,000 Palestinian children have been killed, and over 27,000 Palestinian people total. You've heard these stats in front of you today. And as of 2 a.m. yesterday morning, nearly 100 people were killed in Rafah. Palestinian people are not disposable. And I can wrap up in a few sentences. Maybe if we silence it, I can. I ask you to stand against our tax dollars being used to decimate innocent families, because we are all affected by this issue as taxpayers. We are making our voices heard because this is a war against everyone that believes in justice and humanity. We, the people, have many needs with our $14 billion in tax money in this country. We have healthcare needs, we have housing needs, we have childcare needs, we have education needs, so on and so on. And we want Palestinian people to be able to live their lives in peace and dignity and not have to worry about their ability to go to school and get healthcare and feed themselves. Whole communities, generations of people, families, entire families have been taken out on the dime of our taxpayer money. And it is our duty to have a say and put the pressure on. We have a responsibility to fight where we stand here in Bangor and change the hearts and minds to make our voices heard. I can share one more sentiment if you have time, but if this is it, I can wrap up. What do you think?
One more minute.
One more. I want to just wrap up by sharing a poem by Mahmoud Darwish, who is an award-winning Palestinian author and poet. His literature and his poetry, it has a sense of Palestinian identity. Think of others. As you prepare your breakfast, think of others. Do not forget the pigeons' food. As you conduct your wars, think of others. Do not forget those who seek peace. As you pay your water bill, think of others, those who are nursed by clouds. As you return home to your home, think of others. Do not forget the people of the camps. As you sleep and count the stars, think of others, those who have nowhere to sleep. As you liberate yourself in metaphor, think of others, those who have lost the right to speak. As you think of others far away, think of yourself. If only I were a candle in the dark. Thank you.
Seeing no one else in the room, we'll go online. Jamila.
My name is Jamila Lavasser. I live in Waldo County, in the town of Waldo. I want to thank you for taking up this urgent issue tonight, and I thank everyone who has spoken in favor of a ceasefire resolution. I'm speaking as a retired nurse and a Jew who lost most of my family in the Holocaust. Israel has killed over 400 medical workers since October 7th, and there is not a single fully functioning hospital in Gaza. Israel has killed or injured more than at least 100,000 civilians to date and destroyed the infrastructure that people need to live. As a nurse, I am horrified by Israel's ongoing attacks on hospitals and ambulances, but every human being with a conscience should be horrified. I've read a lot about the medical situation at Terezin, the concentration camp near Prague, where Hitler sent most of my family before they were sent further on to the gas chambers. At Terezin, the situation was horrifying. My great uncle was a doctor there, and I've read a lot about the starvation and lack of sanitation, cold and lack of medicine that killed so many people there. But there were no bombs falling. People weren't showing up at the hospital with white phosphorus burns, with limbs that needed to be amputated without anesthesia, and with horrifying abdominal wounds. They weren't being shot at by Israeli soldiers while bleeding on a dirty hospital floor. It is far worse in Gaza. I never thought I'd have to say that, but it is far worse in Gaza. Now, as Israel begins its assault on Rafah, a city that has become the largest refugee camp on earth, with over 1.3 million people, there is nowhere for people to go. This will be a bloodbath. While the Bangor City Council resolution might seem largely symbolic, it is important. All the little steps taken together add up to a bigger voice demanding a permanent ceasefire. I urge you to pass this resolution. Thank you very much.
Last chance. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jacob Hines. I'm a Jewish student at UMaine. I live in Orono. So to talk about growing up, you never really hear anything about the context of how Israel came to be. Growing up in Sunday school at synagogue, never hear like the word Nakba. By the time you start learning about Palestinians, you're like, what's that? And so the kind of insane indoctrination that they have, or that Zionism is in this country, really, is kind of shocking when you come to realize like what's actually been going on, which is that people's homes were stolen and then they were forced into a open air prison known as Gaza, where Israel controls the food and water, and then also bombs them and calls it mowing the lawn. And so, while the October 7th attack was unfortunate, it's not unexpected. And the only really way to resolve this situation is by calling for a ceasefire and ending the occupation. And so I had another idea, but I lost it. Anyway, yeah, you guys should call for a ceasefire.
Brianna Norris.
Hi, I'm Brianna Norris. I'm from Pittsfield. I'm lucky to live on beautiful farmland in my home state. I cannot imagine how it feels for every Palestinian for generations to not have that same freedom to live in their own homeland. How lucky we are. Israel has stolen land from Palestinians for decades. And now we watch as Israel bombs Gaza indiscriminately, killing children, women, men, their animals, their orchards, their farmland, and bombing their homes. No matter your political party, we must all stand up together for the sake of humanity for the sake of people that deserve to live in their own homeland that have been stolen by Israel. We must stand collectively, regardless of politics, regardless of our religions. A ceasefire is for humanity. Even these symbolic gestures are important right now. Please demand a ceasefire. Thank you.
A procedural question for the city manager or city solicitor. We wanted to draft a potential resolution for discussion at the next council workshop. Do we need to vote on that tonight, or can we just direct you to draft for later?
You can direct us.
Discussion.
Yep, you can direct us.
Before we move on to the regular agenda, do any of the councilors wish to respond?
Can I say something, please? Yeah. So I have a statement that I worked on this weekend, but first of all, I want to ask Larry, because Larry, have you had any chance to connect with the Jewish community? Because we have this good relationship with them, and we want to make sure that they're a part of this process, their input. I read the language. I mean, I think it's very, I would say, to the point. It does not, exclude anyone. I feel it's very balanced. So, but I would like to have more of our Jewish friends in the community be involved in the process, just to make sure that, we're all on the same page. Because again, like many of them, they attended this event at the Islamic Center of Maine, writing letters. They don't agree with what's going on, and we want their voice to be, in this as well. We'll appreciate if you do that. Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, I would like to say something, please. Yeah. So her name was Hind. She was in a car with her family seeking safety from the bombardment of their neighborhood. Their car was targeted by an Israeli tank, and she was the only survivor. She picked up the phone and called the Red Crescent, crying for help. 12 days later, her body was found along with the bodies of her family. A few meters from their car was the Red Crescent car destroyed by direct shelling, despite a prior coordination to allow the ambulance to reach the location of the trapped child. The bodies of the two medics who were dispatched were recovered as well. Hind's story is just one of thousands of other innocent people who are trapped and feels helpless with no sign of ceasefire in the book. When designated safe zones have been heavily bombarded and there is truly no safe area there for people to go to, people are left with literally no other option but to wait for their death. We have to be their voice. The assault last night on the last overcrowded safe zone, where close to 1.3 million displaced Palestinians fled to, while all our eyes were fixed on Super Bowl, is the latest of series of displacement, destruction, and death. Undoubtedly, the attacks on October 7th were horrific, and it changed many Israelis' lives forever. Killing any human being is abhorrent, and we should all condemn it. The retaliation, however, is far horrific and leaves us at loss for words. It's an offense to our humanity. It's a curse on every one of us who stayed silent and failed to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. It's no longer a matter of debate. The issue in Gaza has risen to a humanitarian crisis and has been labeled as such by human rights groups and international organizations, including the United Nations, World Health Organization, and Doctors Without Borders. The indiscriminate suffering inflicted on civilians ranges from starvation, disease, mental health, and exhaustion. All is a result of deliberate bombardment, blocking of aid, including food, water, and medical supplies, the cutting off of electricity, and the complete dismantling of the medical system. Our tax dollars have directly contributed to this mass killing and catastrophe. Almost 130 days filled with innocent lives lost that could have been spared, and billions of dollars that could have been used to help us here at home instead of funding a war abroad that amounts to be called a genocide. Our own communities struggle with meeting basic needs. In our backyard are citizens suffering from homelessness, comorbid mental health and substance use, unemployment, outdated infrastructure, and countless other dilemmas that deserve our attention and our leadership. We should be investing here at home first. Further, I believe the dollars that we invest in foreign affairs should be used to enhance development in struggling countries, not stain our country's history by funding destruction and human suffering. Hence, it's our duty to call for immediate and permanent ceasefire, release of all hostages, and allow humanitarian aid to get into Gaza. Let's act now and save lives. Let's be their voice. Calling for a ceasefire is imperative, not only for our collective morality, but for our own development and future of our country. It's a message to our state and federal representatives to take a clear stand against mass killing of Palestinians in Gaza. Even though I can't speak on behalf of our Jewish friends in the community, but I want to note that we have worked closely and have engaged in conversations with some of them over the current crisis in Gaza. They participated at an event held at the Islamic Center of Maine, where attendees wrote letters to our representatives and senators to encourage the call to action. Supporting this activity tonight is not meant to create any division or alienation of one group from another. It's rather a call to preserve the sanctity and dignity of human life. Whether we are students, political leaders, or ordinary citizens of conscience, let's all do everything in our power to put an end to this oppression, human suffering, and the dehumanization that contributes to it.
Thank you, Councilor Yakbaga. Seeing no other speakers, we will move on to the consent agenda.
Minutes of Bangor City Council regular meeting of January 22nd, 2024. Business and Economic Development Committee meetings of January 3rd, 2024, January 17th, 2024, and February 5th, 2024. Government Operations Committee meeting of February 5th, 2024, and Infrastructure Committee meeting of January 17th, 2024. Liquor license renewals. Application for liquor license renewal. Malt Wine Spirits of Cutler LLC, doing business as Novio's Bistro, 130 Hammond Street. Application for liquor license renewal. Malt Wine Spirits of WNC Bangor Company LLC, doing business as Bangor Aviator, 308 Godfrey Boulevard. Liquor license new. Application for liquor license renewal. New. Malt Wine Spirits of Sim City Indoor Golf LLC, doing business as Sim City Indoor Golf. 24-075 order authorizing the execution of a municipal quitclaim deed for real estate located at 208 Pearl Street. 24-076 order authorizing the execution of a municipal quitclaim deed for real estate located at 700 Mount Hope Avenue, number 19. 24-077 order authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Bangor Area Recovery Network to receive up to $23,000 from the State of Maine Overdose Response Pilot Grant. 24-078 order authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with Maine Mental Health Connections Together Place Peer Run Recovery Center to receive up to $23,000 from the State of Maine Overdose Response. 24-079 order authorizing purchase of a loader with plow and wing from United Construction and Forestry for $309,900. 24-080 order appointing local health officer in accordance with Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention requirements. 24-081 order accepting the 2023 annual report from the Advisory Committee on Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights. 24-082 order authorizing the city manager to apply for a grant up to $76,320 from the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Move passage of the consent agenda. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Comments or questions? Seeing none, consent agenda has passage. Referrals to committee and first reading.
24-083 resolve authorizing the city manager to accept and appropriate $150,000 in grant funds from Maine Department of Health and Human Services for an overdose response program, first reading.
Move referral. Second.
A motion, we have a second. Seeing no doubt, item is referred. We do not have any unfinished business or new business on the agenda for tonight. Closing comments. Councilor Fournier?
Good night.
Councilor Leonard?
I do have one thing that I do want to say before we end tonight. Make this very quick. Honorable citizens of Bangor, you have demonstrated yourselves as unwavering advocates for the indispensable and inspiring dream of connecting Amtrak throughout the state. This dream, this philosophy of multimodal transportation, holds the key to the prosperity, sustainability, and interconnectivity of our cherished city and the broader expanse of Maine. The merits of delivering Amtrak passenger rail service are profound. Amplified connectivity ensures safer, more equitable, and convenient transportation options for all residents. Reduced congestion and heightened sustainability are but a fraction of the advantages, such as transportation system promises. A crucial stride towards realizing this vision lies in the extension of Amtrak service from Portland to Bangor, forging a crucial link to Boston in the expansive Northeast corridor. This initiative, offering swift, dependable, and economic alternatives to traditional intercity travel, is within an hour's reach for 90% of Maine residents. Moreover, it promises to catalyze investments in development, tourism, and employment while concurrently mitigating emissions and congestion linked to vehicular transit. Yet, despite overwhelming benefits and resounding public support, our efforts to pass LD 860, charting the course for Amtrak's extension to Lewiston, Auburn, Waterville, and Bangor, face formidable hurdles. Concerns over feasibility and an absence of unanimous political backing loom large. In 2023, Governor Mills's administration favored bus expansions over rail networks in what we perceive as a myopic decision, overlooking the enduring advantages of investing in established railroad infrastructure. Simply, this is short-sighted. Citizens of Bangor, with that said, the power to usher forth change lies within each of you. Your engagement is imperative to surmount these obstacles. I implore you to actively reach out to Maine state legislatures, Maine state senators, articulating unwavering endorsement for LD 860. Convey to them your belief in the transformative potential of Amtrak for Bangor and the entirety of Maine. Share your narratives, your aspirations, and your dreams for a strong economy and environmentally conscious and interconnected future. Share the dream of trains for Maine. This opportunity is not one we can afford to relinquish. Together, we can forge a transportation system attuned to the needs and aspirations for all Mainers. Seize your phones, compose those emails, write letters to the editor, and actively engage with our legislative leaders, making it unequivocally clear that Bangor stands poised for progress, connectivity, and a future defined by multimodal transportation. I extend my gratitude and let our voices resonate with unwavering resolve. Thank you all.
Good night.
Councilor Yakabaga?
I thought Patty will be here tonight, so she left, but I want to recognize her years and years of service to the city of Bangor, to our community, and her dedication, compassion. I can't imagine anyone in this community, when you mention her name, but say good things about her. She is that a person who, even though she was holding one of the most complicated jobs in our city. So I want to just say thank you to her. She is not here tonight, but I hope she will hear this later. So thanks. Have a good night.
Councilor Fish?
Good night, Bangor.
Any comments from staff? Just waves from the gallery. All right, thank you very much. We are adjourned.